All right, welcome back to Misery Point Radio. I, of course, am your host. My name is Mike. And as always, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Got an awesome show lined up. Got an awesome couple of shows lined up. And this show today is kind of a part one, if you will. So I have an epic interview with a good friend of mine. I'd call him a local musician, but he's really been everywhere. Done everything. Running the gamut from performing musician to producer to engineer, artist development, representation, you name it. Won some awards. Yeah, little thing called the Emmy. No big deal. You know, everybody's got one of those. So I'm really excited today to have an old friend of mine who is working the scene and doing the deal come on, talk about his life in the business, his life in the spotlight, his life in the producer's chair, and to his most current project, where for the last 7 years, he has been working tirelessly to promote musicians of all skill levels, of all backgrounds, of all styles of music, to provide them a forum to, as I like to say, share their awesomeness with the world. And I am here, on location, in his studio, to get the inside scoop. So please welcome to Misery Point Radio, the legendary Jeff Tassin. Jeff, thanks for letting me invade your studio, man. I have been looking forward to this for a long time.
You're welcome indeed.
Awesome. Jeff and I have been acquainted for some years back when I used to run a little European restaurant / coffee shop / bistro, and Jeff was running the musical program for that. And that was a really awesome time, I think, for me. And Jeff and I got to become friends and kind of stayed in touch haphazardly over the years. But I've always tried to keep an eye on what you've been doing. And you've been in this area for so long now. You are definitely a fixture in the Kitsap music scene, to say the least.
As a matter of fact, I think I played your wedding.
You did, in fact, play my wedding, which was awesome. And to this day, every time my wife hears "Wonderful Tonight," it's a very emotional song. So, yeah, thank you. That's cool. One of my favorite memories. That was definitely super epic. And if I remember correctly, that weather was so touch and go that day. Yeah. Is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? We had an outdoor wedding, and so there was a lot of stuff that was writing on the fact that the weather would hold true, and it had been misting, and then right before the ceremony was going to start, everything cleared up.
Yeah.
And then within the hour after it was done, the rain came. So that was super.
It pardoned you.
I deserve one pardon in my life, and apparently that was it. So yeah, thank you again for that. That was also super epic.
That was cool.
So Jeff Tassin Studios, tell us about what you got going on here.
This is a studio that I built for myself as a songwriter. Later, I started producing other songwriters, but it is pretty strictly held in that ballpark. I have had bands in here, and as you can see, it'd be a little tight. I even had to move some furniture because the bands really wanted to record here.
Right.
And so we managed to do that. But typically, what I do here is produce songwriters. That is demos either for publishing or even records, for distribution for writers.
Sure. So you serve as a producer, engineer, everything from start to finish.
Kind of a one-stop shop here.
Yeah, I was looking on your website, and not only are you representing and working with artists, but you work with television stations and do kind of soundtracks. And tell us about that. That's pretty epic.
After I moved back from Nashville here, I sort of sought out a career as a writer for television and specials and whatever. So I affiliated myself with Channel 9 and got in on some really groundbreaking projects.
That'd be a KCTS?
KCTS
Okay.
Seattle, yeah. And at the time, I came in just at the right time because they were developing the very first HD show. HD was not standard then. As a matter of fact, PBS, KCTS, this station here in Seattle, were the very first people to do any kind of HD show ever. Ever.
Crazy.
Yeah, they had sent, in conjunction with NHK Japan, KCTS co-sponsored this huge 6 one-hour part series called The Miracle Planet. They had already gone out, like 6 camera locations in the world and got all this footage and dumped it off at KCTS because they had the machines. And we wrote the soundtrack to all that. And it was the first HD broadcast ever. 10 years later, well, I don't think it was 10 years. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure when. But we did another show that launched the very first HD station in the U.S., and that's KCTS. They started broadcasting all HD content from then on. So, I mean, I really lucked out in that stream of time and affiliated myself as an independent music producer and got in on, I'm still getting in on it, but there are maybe 33 projects or so.
You've been involved in 33 projects?
Yes, either as music producer or a writer or both.
Writer as in like the script of the show for the audio, the talking, things like that?
Writing the music, creating the music, the soundtrack, and then being in on the editing and whatnot.
Awesome. And so you won some awards.
I was lucky enough to pick up 3 Emmy Awards and some other things.
Right.
Like I've worked with Brockway TV in New York on a project that got me some awards. As long as we're going to go down that road.
Yeah, let's go down that road.
I have a International Chicago Film Festival Award and a Houston Film Festival Award, International. Probably what I think is my best award is an International Telly Award for excellence of composition.
Awesome. So how do you get involved in those projects? Do people seek you out, or is this something where you're saying, I want to go after this particular project?
Well, a lot of those projects we did at KCTS, it was a core, it just kind of happened simultaneously, a core group of writers assembled. And the producers would bring that to the music director, who at that particular time was Denny Gore. And Denny Gore would collect this hub of musicians, and they'd go through the project.
Okay.
And kind of assign things this way and that way. Later on, I started working directly as the music director to some of the producers.
Got it.
It got a little more free.
So initially it was almost like a staff position where they just, here's the work that we have to do collectively, and this is your role, and this is your role, and you just did your roles. And it just so happened that it was so awesome. Everybody loved it. And then the work grew from there.
We kept getting awards and
yeah,
all kinds of things. We did the Over series, which started with Over Washington, which gleaned enough for 2 gold records. And then it went to Over Florida, Over California. Every state wanted one of those. So
yeah.
I swear we went through half the states.
Yeah. Is that still an active project?
It's no. I think I jumped off that ship when they got to New England.
You jumped off, you were done, or you felt
I was done with the Overs for that time.
Nice. So
they discontinued them after that for whatever reasons.
Yeah. The affiliation, though, with KCTS and PBS is still active, though, for you?
It's still going, although the trouble, I won't get too much down this dark rabbit hole.
Sure.
The trouble with politics in KCTS has really crippled them.
Sure.
They had a lot of trouble with nameless people at the top with their fingers in the jars, and they lost a lot of government funding.
Well, sure, because I mean, it does rely on various methods of funding. It's not something that has a
Yep.
continual cash stream. So, donations or party affiliations or, or what I call back pats and handshakes.
Yes.
can
Yeah,
be,
there's a lot of really good folks. Some of them well-to-do, some of them
sure,
are simple folks like me
sure.
that donate to Channel 9 KCTS for the public benefit.
Right.
And then the government did sponsor, I forget how much, but a significant percentage.
Yeah.
But when there was these political upheavals,
Sure.
they pulled their funding.
Yeah.
That's why they're pitching more often.
Yeah.
So consequently, they're doing far less production here, which is a pity, but they
Yeah.
moved a lot of it back to Boston.
Okay. And do you still have contact with any of those people that you worked with?
I do, indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Anything in the works that you can discuss?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
but I will say that Bill Fast, brilliant engineer, who is now retired, and he's thinking abroad now.
Oh.
So we've talked about doing some things with NHK.
Okay. Awesome. So getting back to, I guess, what I know you for, and probably what a lot of people know you for, is your music. You've been a performing artist for how long now?
Probably 54 or 5 years, something like that.
Yes, and I want to clarify that Jeff still actively performs. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of where you were and where you are now.
All right. Well, I started like many other kids in the 60s, with the kind of music that was happening in the mid to late 60s. I bought my first decent electric guitar, which is on that wall.
Yes, and as a
66.
quick little segue there, we're in Jeff's studio and we are surrounded by lots of cool gear and some vintage guitars, and Jeff did tell me the quick story about each of them, which I thought was really cool. But the first guitar, the Gibson.
The first decent guitar I had a Xenon before that. I think it was a Japanese knockoff Strat. But this guitar is a 66 TDC Gibson 335, and I bought it brand new in 66.
And that started you on the path to...
I started playing professionally when I was 14 years old. Yeah.
Man, 14, playing professionally. So what does that mean to play professionally when you're 14?
Get paid.
Get paid.
Get paid. And sadly, I might say that when I played all city dances at age 14, 15 years old, we made $50 a man.
Yeah.
Then. The average musician today, 50 stinking years later, makes about $40, $50 a guy.
Yeah.
In the clubs that we can work in.
It hasn't moved too far past that, has it?
No. And look how much we're paying for everything else.
Yeah. When you balance it out, you look at, the not just the time investment, but, the gear and the travel alone. The travel alone is what'll kill you.
Yeah.
But, sometimes people are driving cross country, for a gig that really doesn't pay anything, and you're spending money to play for the majority of your career. I talked about this with the Fibs who were on the show here just recently, and we talked about that extensively, how they were touring, and it's like, man, this is just so expensive. Yeah. But you stuck with it from 14, and then where'd you go from there?
I managed to get lucky. We formed a band. The first band that had some major success, I was 16, and we released a record on Jarrett Records called Little Lies. Bill Carter and John Carter, Tom Wilson were in that group.
Tom Wilson?
Tom Wilson,
No kidding.
Tom Wilson and I did some writing together with John Carter.
Okay.
Bill Carter at the time wasn't writing much, but he was a bass player at the time. And I don't know if you know Bill Carter, but Bill Carter went on to form a band with my brother, Rick Tassin.
Okay.
Went to Austin in the very early days. And now he's hanging with Johnny Depp and doing some of his band tracks. And
that's crazy.
He's written songs for Stevie Ray Vaughan and the Black Keys and a bunch of people.
Awesome.
And we've had him up to the showcase at Brother Don's.
No kidding.
A few times already. He's threatening to come back next month.
It is a threat. The threat is real, yo.
But that's where it started, was the Bremerton gang.
And that band was called?
The Spindle.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, you can still find the original recordings in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of the Northwest.
Crazy.
We're on volume 3, I think.
In the Hall of Fame.
In the Northwest Hall of Fame.
Northwest Hall of Fame. That's awesome.
I'm proud to say.
And so I know Tom Wilson loosely, anyways, and he's still around here.
He still is, yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
He's playing. He's still playing as well with his wife and some other folks intermittently.
Right. I remember he was playing with was it Chris
Larson?
Matthews, maybe?
Chris.
Yeah, I don't remember the last name, but yeah, they would come down to the restaurant every so often.
Chris Anderson.
Anderson, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, they were a cool duo, and they'd play a bunch of cool old school stuff.
Yeah, some talented folk.
Yeah. So the Spindles, how long were you in that project for?
The Spindle lasted for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We had a hit in the Northwest called Little Eyes.
Okay.
And we kind of broke up and went separate ways. It wasn't until a few years later I emerged in another band that did very well in the Seattle circuit called Jarrett.
Was that Jarrett? Yeah. Okay. So
that was the first formation of Jarrett with my brother.
Awesome. And you guys were around for quite some time then.
Yeah, we still play together once in a while.
Now, I think last time I was at the showcase, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but didn't some of the guys from Jarrett show up there and kind of do some of their own? One guy on the piano, and I seem to recall that you'd mentioned that these were guys that you used to play with. So I'm not sure if that was them or not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, a bunch. Whenever I can, I try to drag my friends off the road. Those who are, who have mustered up, some cool stuff.
Right.
And therefore, I've been able to get Bill Carter off the road. I did some touring with Al Alto.
Right.
I don't know if you know Al.
I do know Al Alto, and he's very predominant in this area as well.
Yeah, and we toured some California things with Caroline Aiken. I've been able to pull her off the road and do parts of legs of tour with her up here and have her be the guest artist at the showcase.
That's awesome.
And she is a doll.
Oh.
She'll rip your heart out. I mean, she's one of the best singer-songwriters you'll ever hear.
Yeah, and you've encountered quite a few in your day. In fact, did you play with, was it Dolly Parton?
I did do tracks for Dolly Parton.
Mm-hmm.
Dolly Parton. I wasn't in the same room with her at the same time. But,
right.
Curb Studios. And
Sure.
she voiced over after that.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's Clint Black, Delbert McClinton, Bonnie Bramlett. We toured with the Oak Ridge Boys for my brother and I both.
As part of their entourage?
Opening for them.
Nice.
And Charlie Daniels, we opened for Charlie Daniels at the Coliseum down there in Nashville. And that went to Radio Luxembourg, broadcast Radio Luxembourg, Germany. And it's funny because one of the stupidest songs I ever wrote, we did during that show. And it got to Europe.
Okay.
And I swear, I wrote this on a fluke up in Alaska when it's hard to explain, but the only country bar broke down and all these people were country and they wanted to hear country music. And we were a concert rock band.
Okay.
And so I was literally threatened with a knife if I didn't play country.
By whom?
By some guy that came out, one of the fishermen that came out of the crowd with his knife open and says, "I'm going to slit you from belly to brisket if you don't play country." I don't think it was that serious, but he was serious enough to brandish a knife.
Crazy.
So I just took off on this flat picking thing and threw some words at it. And we played that multiple times a set. And by the end of the night, it kind of formulated into this song. And we played it as a joke from then on.
But it caught on.
But it caught on. And a friend of mine that we were touring with at the time said, let's play that song. We're in a studio, actually, playing with a bunch of really highfalutin studio guys. And she ran out of tape, so they were rewinding the tape. So she said, let's play that thing. So I started noodling with it. And
play the thing.
And yeah, play the thing. And Leland Sklar and Michael Bard were on drums. They picked up the whole thing. And pretty soon, by the time they had the tape on it, yes, we did tape. she said, "Roll it, let's cut it." And that ended up on her album,
Yeah.
which ended up still to this day. She sold it to Warner Brothers, and I'm still getting royalties from it because it got picked up as a bluegrass standard in Europe. You know, it's a stupid ass song. I never meant to write. You know,
I hear that quite a bit from people who either they're in a rut creatively and they're just, you know, kind of dicking around doing whatever, and they just come up with something that they don't like, but it's like, I just had to have something.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, that turns out to be something they're known for. A lot of times people's most popular songs are either accidental songs,
Yeah.
or songs that they wrote it, they finished it and said, I really just don't like this. Or it becomes popular and subsequently, as a result of the popularity, they just get sick of hearing about it all the time. So I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, the chicken or the egg in this case, but that's crazy that you'd be somewhat known for something that was not even intended to ever be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was in Nashville a couple of years ago at a party, and there was some people jamming, and there was this gal who had played the Grand Ole Opry that night. She's a great mandolin player. And she came up to me afterwards, after we finished this one jam section, and said, "Would you do me a favor?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Will you play Movin'?" Which is the name of the song.
Okay.
Because it's the first song I ever learned when I was a kid. I said, "What?"
One of your songs.
Yeah, well, it's that stupid song.
Yeah.
Because it's a flat picking song. It's kind of
Right.
an excuse to sound country.
Right.
You know? So she picked it up and played it. She killed it.
Yeah. So that song was nostalgic for her.
It was, yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's very warm at heart for sure.
Yeah, especially does it give you a different perspective on that, how somebody else can take a piece of your work and not at all get the same vibe that you have off of it?
It hits me all the time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, other people react to what you write
Sure.
differently than you do, because I knew the circumstances behind that,
Right.
and she did not.
Yeah.
You know, she associated it with her life. It happens all the time in music. you
Yeah,
know?
I guess that's true. We were talking about that recently as well, where, you know, a lot of the times artists have a reason for writing something, and then sometimes it's really more of a personal thing than anything, but it turns into something that gains popularity, and people interpret the meaning their own way. They take it on as if it were their song according to their life or their circumstances, and whether or not they're interpreting it the way the artist intended it to be interpreted is
Yes.
rarely the same. They just the
Yes.
paths divulge or diverge so differently.
One of the songs that I wrote ended up on the Blue Water album by Freddie Pink. That really resonated with people way far more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
It's a love song.
Yeah.
It's a woe is me kind of love unrequited song.
Sure.
And I wrote it because I got a poisonous spider bite on my foot, and I was delirious, walking back and forth in severe pain, and I just did that to keep myself from thinking,
Yeah.
from feeling the pain. But it's a love song, and people really identify with it. So.
Yeah. Hey, and if they only knew that it was born out of a spider bite.
Yeah, right.
Which I detest, by the way, so I hate spiders. They're disgusting.
It was a brown recluse, too.
Oh, man. Those
Almost
are
lost a knuckle.
Those are nasty MFs. I have a girl that works for me that she has a very nasty scar on her leg. She got 2 bites at the same time. So they don't know if it was 2 different spiders or it's just got bit twice. But
Wow.
I'll tell you what, those recluses, no thanks.
Yep.
Don't care for them.
Move them out.
Move them out.
Deport them.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Speaking of politics, all
Yeah,
recluses,
right.
all recluses. Damn you all. So, now getting into, I guess, a little bit more. So your career has spanned a few decades, and you're now in the role of, say, a producer where you're starting to, or not starting to, but you are actively involved in whether or not it's the careers or the projects of many other people, as both on the recording side of things as well as on the performing side of things. So before we get into this magical showcase that we keep alluding to, what are some of the acts that you have been working with locally here in your studio?
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
They come up in the showcase all the time, and once in a while I give away studio time.
Sure.
And so I'll get a chance to do that. And then they'll want to produce an album here.
Okay.
Of note albums are Niall Hartley.
Okay.
Niall Hartley's Dime Store Cowboy album is fantastic. It's a country album. in some areas, country rock. And Al Alto's album.
Okay.
I was in on the mix down of that. And Tammy Frost's album.
Mm-hmm.
All three of those people are staples here in the music scene. Fantastic musicians.
Sure.
Torre was a couple years back, an incredible, talented group. Actually, what came out through the showcase was Afton Prater as well. She premiered here at age 14, I think. Now she's been to Nashville, recorded and done some other things.
Awesome.
Jim Skews, Jim Landis, all these are frequent flyers at the showcase and have produced albums. Jim Skews here, and there's another studio that Jim Landis recorded in. There's musician after musician. They're really talented. So
you have, for the last 7 years, been doing this showcase, and let's just go ahead and get into that. And the anniversary happens to be the 30th.
The 30th, next Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
A week from today.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So tell us about this magical showcase and what it entails.
The showcase is from 7 to 10-ish. I do a 20, 30-minute intro so that no one has to go first.
Right.
And sort of orient people.
So meaning you play,
I play
for the first
yes.
30 minutes or so of said showcase?
Yes, of said showcase.
So you're forced to listen to Jeff Tassin for half an hour?
You're forced to listen to me for a half an hour. And it's been magical for me. I discovered long ago, because this isn't the first showcase I've had. I had one in Seattle that lasted 3-4 years. And the benefit for me personally is that I get to take my entire catalog
right,
and cycle it through that half hour in front of the showcase so I can tighten it up for shows. Really take a hard look again and again and again at certain songs. And if they really still get no reaction, you got to face the fact it's a chucker.
It's funny too, because sometimes you play to musicians and sometimes you play to people who aren't musicians.
Yes.
And the people who aren't musicians are going to have the most real reaction to what you're doing.
Yes.
Because they don't have the texture or the background or necessarily the know-how. All they know is how it makes them feel.
Exactly.
So you definitely put yourself out there when you're experimenting in front of people. But it's a good avenue if you're really somebody who's got thick skin and wants a genuine reaction to what you do.
I tell people over and over and over again, don't take compliments or input from your friends or your family, because they're lying to you. They're lying to you every time because they owe you something. They know who you're not.
Right.
Or they know who they think you are, or whatever their concept of you is. It's wrong.
Yeah.
As a musician.
Sure.
As a musician, it's wrong. You need to play over and over again the same song for people who owe you nothing, don't know you from nothing.
Right.
Then if you can get their attention, you know that you got something.
Sure.
If you can't get their attention, to be honest, there are other variables. It's the place, it's distracting, it's just that. That's why repetition is so important. You have to play to people over and over again, and you got to take that data and distill how much of that was a fair listening and how much input from those people that is valuable to you.
Yes. Plus, there's one other factor that you didn't mention, and that is the intoxicant factor.
Yeah.
That may or may not be present.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I didn't mention that, but that's definitely in the environment.
Yeah, no, it's there.
And the first time you're playing anywhere,
right?
You're looking at the walls and the pictures and how many TVs they got on the walls and what the layout is. The second time you play there, you're not looking at the TVs. It takes a while to get comfortable in a place too. So playing repeatedly in as many venues as you can is the most important thing for a writer to do.
For sure.
Who wants to have any kind of performance capability.
Do you think that the people that you bring to your showcase have the same perspective as you in that sense?
I think most of them do, yeah. I think most of them do understand a lot about that, because just my opinion, it's more difficult to run an open mic for original material than it is for commercial material.
Right.
Obviously, because people don't know what they're listening to. And most people don't care.
Yes.
Or I should say many people don't care. When they're walking into a club and they hear music that they've never heard before, typically they're not paying attention.
Yes, and it's worth noting, specifically your showcase focuses on original material. And I don't know if I go as far as to say that, covers are off the table, because there's been a couple here and there, but definitely maybe that's something that comes up towards the end of the show, or there's bring everybody back up and then have a random jam kind of a thing. But when you're on your showcase, you're there to play your own stuff.
Yes, and after I finish my set, I make it clear that covers are allowed, but we give away all the tips. We raffle it off to one of the musicians that play that night. But in order to qualify for those tips, you got to play original material.
Sure.
So it's our way of promoting original material.
Absolutely. And we should also note that this is in Brother Don's, which is a very well-known establishment. It's been here in Kitsap County, Bremerton, Washington State for, I don't know, 40 years. Dang.
40 years, yeah.
Yeah. So this is an institution that's been through many changes, but Jeff has been rocking Brother Don's now for the last 7 years. So what do you think is the biggest challenge with this showcase? Is it getting the acts in the door? Is it getting the customers to come in and say, hey, I want to listen to original material? Is it getting, Gordy to let you keep doing it? What's going on?
No, Gordy's all totally behind it.
Yeah.
He's been really... he's got the insight to know that, because starting one of these is really hard.
Right.
As we said before, it's harder than doing a regular jam night. So you don't just do it 1, 2, 3 weeks and go, this isn't working, we're out of here.
Right.
He has stuck with it for that long, and he's benefited by it. It has grown all of his other nights of the week, because quality musicians are known to hang there. And I might point out, too, it takes a little more stick-to-itiveness to write your own songs and perform them than it does to learn commercial material and perform them.
Sure.
So typically the quality of the music on a songwriter's night is better than a regular open mic because the people are generally more dedicated to it. So because of that, it's known to have high-quality music. And we do a nice job there, too. There's nice HD cameras on a new HD system that Gordy just installed. Yeah.
The setup is awesome. And so a lot of people might be picturing just a bunch of singer-songwriters gathering around an old stage with a couple of beat-up old SM57s or something, and, a little dark jury corner of the universe. But this setup is really cool. Yeah, there's cameras, there's screens, and then you produce really cool videos that then you share via social media. So not only are you being heard and being seen locally, but then you're putting that stuff out there on the interwebs and allowing those artists to now share those however many hundreds or thousands of times with their own people.
That's right. Our club photographer, Patricia Tassin, my wife.
I believe you know her.
I believe I know her, yeah. She's there every week. She won't be there tonight.
Okay.
But she's there every week taking pictures and stills. I'll be in her stead.
Okay.
And not doing quite as good a job. No, I'll do a fine job. I'll do a great job. But then we distill those and post them on Facebook on her site, pattytassin.com.
Awesome.
Or Patty Tassin Facebook, rather. And Jeff Tassin's Songwriters Showcase Facebook, and Jeff Tassin Facebook page.
Sure.
It's all about the showcase.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then just as a quick side tangent, I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about your other studio projects, but you got this drone thing going on that you do some fantastic aerial photography with. And sometimes those aerial photography bits and pieces kind of show up as backdrops to the showcase or whatnot. So that's super awesome. Drones are fascinating and somewhat scary to me. But
I've done some private contracts with drone work and some commercial contracts and just go out there and fly the hell out of it because I love it.
Yeah.
These days, you can get an incredibly good 4K. And for those of you that aren't familiar with 4K, 4K is to HD quality as HD is to old-fashioned TV cathode ray tube quality.
Yeah, CRT TVs.
So it's instead of 2,000 pixels across picture, you get a 4,000 pixel across picture. And I have two drones that are 4K drones.
Right.
And they have 3-axis gimbals on them so that it's really beautiful stability on those.
Yeah.
It's not as fast as some of the other popular drones like the DJI drones, although they make some really nice ones. But they have 9-inch props on them, and they're more squirrely.
Right.
These have 13-inch props on them that turn at 4,000 RPM, and the lift on them is so stable.
Yeah.
It is just unbelievable. It's like you're on it's actually smoother than a crane.
Yeah, and some of the videos you've posted will have like your music in the background, just some really cool aerial shots, as if you're watching, Channel 9 or, something, the Nature Channel or some kind of documentary with just fantastic aerial photography and just an awesome soothing music in the background. So
cool, thanks.
Yeah, and
feel free to go to Bird's Eye, Jeff Tassin's Bird's Eye on Facebook.
Okay.
Where there's I don't remember, 20-some productions, drone productions, and it is all my music.
And just to kind of clarify, you were talking about the 4K versus CRT. Prior to 4K, the high def video standard has been 1080p for roughly the last 10 years. And everybody was like, oh, 1080p, they'll never top 1080p. I mean,
right.
There's so many pixels in there. I mean, there's no physical way. And so 4K is literally 4 times the resolution of 1080p. So you're talking insane amounts of detail.
Yeah.
And not just in the picture, but, with frame rates and with just different transitions.
Yeah.
And so it's remarkable quality. And the showcase you're recording in 4K.
We're recording the showcase in 4K.
Yeah.
We are rendering in a format that's more friendly.
Sure.
To YouTube and Facebook.
Sure.
But the old adage, crap in, crap out. If you put gold in, you're going to get gold out.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's pretty high quality.
Yeah.
I will say too, the movie industry is passing us up. I know this is painful to hear, but they're already in 8 and 16K.
That's
at 120 frames per second.
The money to get into that technology so far ahead of it is just outstanding. I mean, you just the mindset of how far ahead of the game you have to be to even conceptualize what the next step is going to be. So you're talking, you put out a piece of technology on the market and somebody's already got 2 generations past that in the works.
Yeah, right.
And it takes at least a decade to get to that next generation. So
on that note, when KCTS put out the first HD station,
right,
Channel 5 followed, Channel 7 followed, and within a couple of years, they were all trying to get on that boat. But the weird thing was there was no HD content. So what they were doing was up-converting from SD, all these, cropping the picture and up-converting. So it's actually terrible.
Yeah.
But they had to find out some kind of filler to broadcast on those stations.
Sure. Well, and
that's still happening.
It still happens, yeah. And I mean, I work in an industry that, in the gaming industry where, resolution, graphics, horsepower, all that stuff for consoles is vital to the success on the market, that it be able to be lauded as this is the top of the line, this is the best that the industry has to offer right now. And then notwithstanding the fact that probably a large majority of people don't actually have the necessary devices to as you put it, to render into that proper format. So if you've got a 4K console and you've got a 1080p television, well, you're not 4K in that whole thing. You're upscaling, you're interlacing those pixels to a certain refresh rate to get as close to that as possible.
Right.
But you're not actually hitting that true form. So
most TVs out now are 720 to 1080p.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not 2040.
Yeah. And 4K though, I do see that as becoming the new standard, and
they're flooding the market.
I think 4K is hitting it faster as a standard than when 1080p became a standard. That seemed to take forever.
Yeah.
Because I was, again, selling hardware that could output at that, but people weren't able to get that.
Right.
So I assume with like the videos that you've got coming on there, if people that are properly equipped, they'll be blown out of their minds. But even if they don't have that particular hardware that's capable of doing that, it's still a better picture.
That's their plan. They're going to keep us upgrading forever.
It's planned obsolescence, right? Is that how that's?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So these artists that you're working with for this showcase, are you seeing new talent come through every showcase, or how often are you seeing kind of the same people coming through?
At least every other showcase.
There's a new talent.
Sometimes every, and sometimes several different new artists come in at a time. So the turnover has been. I think we've aired in the last 7 years close to 500 writers.
Oh wow!
So. We used to keep track of the names, but it's too hard.
Yeah.
so we just let it go, and most of them are reoccurrent, whether they're reoccurring every week or once a month or a couple times a month or something is another thing.
Sure. So, what is the ultimate goal of the Songwriters Showcase? Is there an end game?
The end game for me is to cover my entire library. I've got 500 songs. I've got 500 instrumentals separate from that, not many of which I can play at the showcase because they involve bands and whatnot.
More than one person,
right?
I.e., more than just you.
Yeah, and not all the songs I write are suitable for an acoustic guitar delivery. So. That narrows down to a few hundred things I'd like to go through and really do that. That's one goal of mine. The other goal of mine is that I really enjoy helping artists get educated about their craft. I've done some beneficial shows where we have another side show called the Nano NAM.
Okay.
Which is the NAM show for us here, sort of. It's an instrument luthiers show.
So NAM is a big international kind of musicians gathering, if you will, to showcase artists, technology, new things on the market, new projects, and so you're kind of taking that concept and putting it on a micro level.
Yeah, and the way we do it is we get 3 luthiers from this area. And we match them with 3 of the best players to highlight these instruments.
Okay.
And we go through and have the audience ask them questions. We ask them questions about their processes and how they make these instruments, woods, etc. I know questions are probably forming in your mind as we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what kind of woods, etc.
Sure.
And we ask them about that, and then we have one of those musicians play that instrument. No.
Has John Thayer been involved in this?
John Thayer has, yeah.
Nice. John Thayer is a very well-known guitar builder in Bremerton in Kitsap County again, and not just as a builder and as a luthier, but also does a lot of restoration for classic and vintage instruments. And his workmanship is just phenomenal.
Yes.
And worth noting, he does it all by himself. Very little help he has from the outside. So it's a tiny little workshop. And so much work, he'll never get it all done.
Yeah, he is a real studier, that one.
Yeah.
John Kerrigan has also been featured.
Okay.
John Kerrigan is here in Port Orchard.
Oh, wow.
He builds fantastic things, all custom made. He builds them maybe 2, 3 at a time.
Okay.
We've also had Ira Langlois interested in doing the next one.
The piano guy.
The piano guy, yeah. He's interested in being in on one of those. He is I forget how many, 4th generation piano builder.
Right.
That has built for some of the most famous folks in the world, outfitted some of the most famous concert halls in the world with his work. He's such a fan of the showcase that he up and gave us a piano.
That's crazy.
He gave us a 100-year-old Hamilton piano.
That's amazing
to use.
I have a funny story about Ira, as I know him, Langlois.
Langlois.
Langlois. I always knew it as
Well, it's spelled
right?
Langlois.
So my first job I ever had was as a piano mover with his company.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, I was in junior high, and I got this job as a favor because my mom did computer work for him. And I was scrawny. I mean, I'm talking like probably in ninth grade, I probably weighed 100 pounds, 120 pounds, zero muscle, nothing. And the first time I went in there and met him and I introduced myself and he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy." And yeah, that was
yeah, like oops.
Yeah, well, okay. Do you think you can lift these pianos? And I'm like, sure, yeah. And so it would I went on I think 2 or 3 jobs that we delivered to like Port Gamble, and we were carrying pianos upstairs and across lawns, and it was usually 2 people. And
you're kidding me.
Admittedly enough, everybody else was carrying my load as well, so that job did not last long for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
but it was really cool that he gave me my first job I ever had, and I always appreciated it. And he's a super cool guy, and his whole family is super awesome, and obviously they're known for the quality of their work as well. So for him to be involved in your showcase on some level is also pretty epic.
It is pretty epic.
Yeah,
it's epic for us because we're real pleased. He's actually brought in. We have a jazz at the club, 4200 Kitsap Way in Bremerton.
Okay.
At Brother Dunn's, we have jazz frequently on Fridays, and Ray Olds is a internationally known pianist who heads up a jazz trio out there frequently and brings in some of his friends off the road, like Gottlieb, who was the sax player for The Tonight Show.
Oh, wow. And
some other high mucky mucks who really know their way around some instruments. And for a couple of those shows, Ira actually brought in one of his pianos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I've been to a couple of these showcases, and I think one of the things that I like the best is that with proper musicians, as I call them, who can jump in to back anybody up at any time with no prior knowledge of their material, to see that come together is pretty fascinating. And I've seen that a few times with you yourself, and it seems like anybody's willing to just kind of help out if somebody wants an accompaniment. You guys all just jump in and start jamming, and to watch the look on somebody's face who's never heard an accompaniment like that with their stuff, like, holy crap, that's my song.
It can be really fun.
Oh man, that's just awesome. And I've talked to many musicians about that over the years, of experiences either in the studio or in the live setting where they're working with people they've never met, people who've never heard their material, people who they would have otherwise never encountered had it not been for some freak occurrence, some meeting at a local show.
Yeah.
And so I think you provide that experience for a lot of people as well. So
that's a whole nother aspect of performance is improvisation.
Yeah.
Which it's real good training.
Yeah. Yeah. I could probably use some more of that training myself. So tonight, do we have anybody specific that's going to be on the dockets that you know about?
I have nothing specific planned.
Just whoever shows up, shows up.
Yeah. We have Mike Peacock here tonight.
Oh, my God. That's me.
Mike Peacock is going to be featured tonight as a representative of Misery Point Radio.
Yeah, as a looky-loo.
We're definitely going to make a big deal out of that.
Cool. Yes, thank you.
There's a lot of musicians that would really love to get any kind of recognition that really deserve it. So.
And the point of this show is to feature, to spotlight, to give people the opportunity to have access to things they wouldn't otherwise have access to. And for me, in my own way, to, as I was telling you off the air, to kind of stay current with the industry, as I don't do a lot of performing anymore. But I do remember as a performing artist that, it's getting really, really difficult to find avenues to get your stuff heard. I mean, we've all been to all these various clubs, and as you said, it's a challenge sometimes to get in there, and then you may or may not be playing for the right people. The ability to get your stuff on the air, and then the ability you to have access to that file to then share with people in your own group, and not have to worry about, hey, I'm going to be on the radio at 3:30 in the afternoon on KSW. You better listen at that exact time or you'll never hear it again.
Yeah, right.
So for people to be able to share their stuff, and that's really kind of what this show is supposed to be all about as well.
That has been one of the best benefits of the web,
right?
Is being able to get to it when you want it,
right?
When you can actually listen to it.
Absolutely.
And I will say too that People like Josh Farley, who's a reporter for the Kitsap Sun, is doing something similar as you are. He's got a YouTube thing called the Bremerton Beat Blast, where
Cool.
he's featured at least 15 writers off that I put him in touch with via the showcase. He's featured those as the soundtrack to his Bremerton Beat Blast, which occurs every week.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It's great exposure for artists.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. That's the ultimate goal. Is I asked you about that a few minutes ago before I completely sideswiped your answer. But the ultimate goal then is to get people heard, and then once they're heard, to really keep them on track and help them progress and develop them and get them to the point where then they're ready to, I guess, fly on their own, if you will.
Yeah, and I will say this is the worst, most horrible time for songwriters ever in history.
Okay.
I won't go into it. It's probably a whole nother podcast. But the way the publishing business is run these days is a sham and a shame for songwriters.
Sure.
The way they collect BMI dues or ASCAP dues and pay them out to the songwriters who earn them.
Right.
And the way that whole industry works in the publishing department has never been worse.
Yeah. Well, that's why you see a lot of people self-publishing anymore. And then while you may not get the large-scale distribution on the physical level, I think that's why you see a lot of artists go towards digital distribution.
Yes.
And, things like Reverb Nation and, iTunes and,
Right.
and iHeartRadio and Spotify.
And Taxi is another very big avenue for publishing.
Absolutely.
And all the more important nowadays than ever is the ability to market yourself from the ground up.
Right.
And the rubber meets the road
Sure.
in a personal performance.
Yes. And as a lot of us know, the biggest hurdle to overcome when you decide to go down that road of either self-producing or self-publishing is you absorb all that cost, right? You pay for your own materials. You're paying for duplication. You're paying for studio time, but you don't have to pay anything back that you haven't already paid into it. There's no worries about residuals going towards somebody else or having to pay somebody else out before you get your take. Every dime that you put in, if you get it back, you choose what you do with what you get coming back to you. So.
Yeah, I might say too that there's a whole lot of people, what I get stated to me so often is that people who write, maybe they got 20, 30 songs on their category or something and catalog, and they want to, and they're telling me, I really don't want to perform. I really don't want to do that. I just want to write and have other people do the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's doing almost nothing about advancing your career,
right?
Let alone interacting your works with the world.
You could do that once you've already achieved what you need to achieve.
Maybe, but still you have to interject yourself into the world and figure out how you're perceived and where to correct yourself and how to grow as a writer.
Yeah.
You can't just sit back on a couch and think that the industry is going to come to you.
Yeah.
You have to get out there and get proactive with your own career,
The businesses, the performing side of things, right? The recording side of things, all of the stuff that your general listener knows about you, but really where all of the quote unquote magic happens is all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's all hard work.
It's all marketing and it's all getting it in the hands of the right people or in the ears of the right people.
It's like going to college.
Right.
How much are you going to spend getting a career?
Dude, don't even tell
me
about
how much time you're going to spend getting a career,
Yeah. I know tons of people who have multiple college degrees who never got to put that to use because of, not being able to find the avenue with which to take that knowledge and actually turn it into practical application.
Yes.
And the music business or any other kind of arts and entertainment business, not only is it fickle, but it's very narrow. I mean, it's
absolutely
the barriers to entry are far more than the access points.
Right.
And so
you can't just think that you're an engineer.
Yeah.
Draw up some stuff that may even be good.
Right.
And sit on a couch and say, I want the industry to come to me and use my stuff.
Well, we've all heard the stories and we've all come across the people that are why is this person not a multimillionaire? Why is this person not touring the world? Why is this guy, doing whatever it is they're doing? And it really just kind of comes down to, are people able to exploit every opportunity that they have?
They're not working it.
Yeah. And if they're not working it, they don't know how to work it, or they suffer from motivational problems or self-esteem issues, or,
it's hard enough. It's impossible enough the way everything is stacked against you.
Right.
But it's absolutely impossible if you don't put it out there and put the energy behind it yourself.
Right. And so that's where we come in. That's what you're doing is
what the showcase is
providing that forum to basically tell people, hey, listen, this is a shot for you to get some exposure, but more than that, it's a shot for you to get your craft down in an environment that welcomes the experimentation, that welcomes the trial and error. And you're not going to be ridiculed for making a mistake. You don't have to worry about perfection. This isn't
we're not your friends or your family.
Yeah. This isn't the Grammys, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to checking out the showcase tonight. As you said, I am going to be there, and we're going to listen to everybody that wants to come up and play tonight. Hopefully we'll get to have a couple of good conversations and line up some stuff for the future. And I want to thank you for taking the hour out of your day today before we head out and joining me here, or letting me join you here in your studio. Next time we'll do it at my place. And as you said, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So before we close out this portion of the show, why don't you just go ahead and tell us where everybody can find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, there is JeffTassin.com that has a bio and some material up there that you can purchase. It says more about the accolades and things like that. More, if you want to find some information about me.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's all the Facebook presence, Jeff Tassin Facebook, Patty Tassin Facebook, and Jeff Tassin Songwriter Showcase.
Awesome. And the Songwriter Showcase is where we're going to be tonight. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with you with some awesome artists. So stay tuned. Thank you.
I could hear the rain last night, like it owned the place, like it's never been away. And I, a witness, stumble onto this private expose. Leaves us shouting out over voices and over landscapes unseen, hissing in the dark, drumming on the leaves. Come on, make me clean. Listen to the rain. Silver curtains lapping down the road with a wistful sound. Over the pavement, dripping from the eaves, lost to the ground. A single drop is an ocean wide emotion when I weep. River runs through my head at night. Come on, let me sleep. Listen to the rain. Listen to the rain.